This is Harsh Rules, I'm Ben Harsh, and today we're going to take a look at the next volume in the Last 100 Yards series, Volume 3, The Solomon Islands. The Last 100 Yards, Volume 3, The Solomon Islands was released in 2021 by GMT Games and designed by Mike Denson. This game supports 2 players and takes 1 to 3 hours per scenario to play. Before we begin this episode, I'd like to recognize the Harsh Rules Patreon supporters that help make content like this possible. If you'd like to support the channel, head over to patreon.com/harshrules to learn more. And once again, thank you for your support. Welcome back to our series breakdown for the Last 100 Yards. Each volume in the Last 100 Yards series is its own standalone version of the game. The first volume, simply titled The Last 100 Yards, focuses on squad-level missions in the European theater of World War II. Volume 2, Airborne Over Europe, provides 10 new missions set during 2 major airborne campaigns, Normandy and Market Garden. Volume 3 shifts to the Pacific Theater with a focus on the Solomon Islands campaign. All volumes in this series share a common series rulebook. Therefore, if you've just purchased Volume 3, you're going to want to go back to Episode 1 of this series and watch them all up to this point. Those episodes will cover the basics of gameplay. This episode is focused solely on the new rules regarding the Japanese. Now, with that bit of housekeeping out of the way, we've got a lot to cover, so let's get started. Scenarios in Module 3 utilize 3 companies of Japanese forces and 1 company of armor. Each infantry company is comprised of 3 platoons, and the first armor company is comprised of 2 armor platoons. Drilling down into a company organization, let's take a look at some of the differences now. Each Japanese rifle platoon consisted of 3 squads of riflemen and a 4th Knee Mortar squad. The Knee Mortar squad can attack using small arms fire or a simplified version of mortar fire. We'll take a look at the details in just a moment. A squad can also deploy into 2 smaller sections. However, deployment is the only way that squads can be broken down, as we'll see in just a moment. The key rule with Japanese units is that they do not disrupt. So when a fire attack result calls for disruption, or when a unit fails a cohesion check, only the combat unit with the best cohesion in the hex is affected and will then suffer a casualty. Any other Japanese units in the hex are immune to cohesion checks and are not affected. If the hex contains more than 1 unit with the best cohesion, select the unit with the best assault value, followed by the unit with the best small arms value. Otherwise, select a unit at random. If no combat unit is present, the non-combat unit with the best cohesion is selected. Therefore, when Japanese units suffer a casualty, they are flipped to their backside representing a reduced squad, versus a disrupted squad with a stripe like in the American forces. Also bear in mind that once a Japanese squad is reduced, it may not deploy into 2 sections. If you're accustomed to the reduction path in American and German forces, learning the reduction path of the Japanese can be a little tricky. Essentially, the disruption step is removed from all Japanese forces. This can be a little easier to get used to if you just keep track of the number of figures on each side of the counter. Full-strength infantry squads have 4 figures. However, when a Japanese unit is hit, it is not disrupted. Instead, it is reduced. The counter is flipped, and the 4 figures become 3 figures, which results in a casualty. American and German forces are disrupted. So you can see the 4th figure is shown as wounded on the back of the counter. There is also a counter stripe to recognize this status. A second hit on the Japanese squad's reduced side will eliminate it and require a casualty to be recorded. A subsequent hit on American or German forces will remove the counter and require its first casualty to be recorded. Now the key difference here is that the Japanese squad is eliminated, whereas the American squad will reduce again into a section. Japanese squads can only create sections if they are deployed while the squad is at full strength. If one of those deployed sections is hit, it is immediately removed and recorded as a casualty. An American section will flip to its disrupted side and require another hit before it is eliminated and recorded as a casualty. Once again, comparing the two sections, you can see that the American section, when it's flipped to its disrupted side, shows the dragged soldier icon. The reverse side of a Japanese section is blank, since the Japanese do not disrupt and suffer an immediate casualty. Now that we understand the reduction path for Japanese units, let's take a look at their other unique feature, the knee mortar squad. Now, let's talk about the Japanese knee mortar infantry squad. So in addition to their small arms fire capability, they were also equipped with Type 90 grenade launchers, in other words, knee mortars, which allowed the unit to also conduct mortar fire. The knee mortar counter has a single value and range that represents either type of fire. The unit's knee mortars and small arms are direct fire weapons, in other words, self-spotting, and must have line of sight to the target hex to fire. The target hex of knee mortar fire is considered to be the secondary impact hex for the purposes of the effects on units. Therefore, for fire actions, knee mortar units may fire with either their mortar or small arms value, but not both in the same game turn. Knee mortar units conduct small arms fire just like any other unit. When firing their knee mortars, they may fire either heavy explosives or smoke, in which case a single MDRM or smoke marker is placed in the target hex. Be aware though, reaction fire utilizing knee mortars is limited to hexes occupied by enemy units the knee mortar unit observe conduct an action. An exception to this is when a knee mortar unit is stacked with its platoon leader, they may fire at any hex in its line of sight. Next, let's take a look at the differences in the knee mortar fire procedure. To conduct a knee mortar fire action, first, the player identifies the firing unit and places its corresponding primary impact marker in the target hex. Next, the firing player declares whether the mortar fire action is for high explosive or smoke. If firing high explosives, the mortar value for a squad is 0 and -1 for a reduced squad. Then, reference the mortar die roll modifier table and apply any modifiers. Then, place a single numerically equivalent mortar die roll modifier marker on the target. If firing smoke, place a single smoke marker in the primary impact hex. Finally, remember the knee mortar primary impact marker is removed during step 3 of the mortar fire adjustment phase and placed in the mortar support pending box. Later, during step 2 of the mortar fire adjustment phase, the Japanese player makes a recovery die roll for each knee mortar primary impact marker in the mortar support pending box. If the die roll is less than or equal to 5, the primary impact marker is moved to the mortar fire available box. And now that we've covered the knee mortar section for the Japanese player, you should have a better understanding to play the scenarios for The Last 100 Yards, Volume 3, The Solomon Islands. If you found this video helpful, please give me a like and share with your friends. To be the first notified when the next episode of Harsh Rules becomes available, please hit the bell icon for notifications. And as always, this has been Harsh for Harsh Rules. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.